Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Natcat's Bookish Cafe. I am here to start the vlog for the third week of Orilium. Alright guys, the first 2 weeks have been very successful in my books, even though yesterday I read only 10 pages and my goal is to read 90 pages a day. Before yesterday, things were going relatively well, so we are still optimistic. I am here to start this vlog. I have not done any reading today. I really slept in. I didn't fall asleep until like after 1, which for me is very late. I could not fall asleep for some reason, and so I slept in until almost 10 today, which I'm not happy about. I definitely have done something wacky to my sleep schedule, and I really need to go ahead and figure out what that is so that I can fix it. But that being said, I figured I would just let you know what I'm currently working on. If you're coming from the other vlogs, you probably already know, but if you haven't seen those, I will have the first and second one linked up above and down below. As always, I am reading a short story, or moving forward a short story or 2 a day from Never a Whistle at Night. Today's story seems to be approaching the 20-page mark, so I think I will only read 1 page of this, seeing as yesterday I didn't read anything out of my other books, so I want to go ahead and prioritize that other book. That other book being A Fresh Water by Akwaeke Emezi. I didn't read a single page of this yesterday, and I am only on page 14, so we definitely want to go ahead and make some progress in this story. In this book, we are following Ada, and she seems to have 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the other. This book seems to be told from the point of view of the spirit that was supposed to be her, but something happened during her birth that caused her and the spirit to not fully morph together, and so they are kind of separate beings, and that is obviously impacting who Ada is as a person. I love Akwaeke Emezi. I've read their book The Death of Vivek Oji, and it was one of my favorites of 2023, so I am very optimistic about this book and definitely want to get some of it done today. I don't think I'll be reading any of my audiobooks at all, so I will talk a bit more about those later, especially seeing as I think the audiobook that I'll be prioritizing is the one that is not really for this readathon. So I don't know how much talking about audiobooks I will be doing in this vlog, but we are going to do our best to stay on track with our reading. On the bright side, I'm done filming, I'm done with my chores. I do still need to go ahead and buy some stuff for dinner tonight. It is a Sunday, so it is my turn to cook. I am planning on making the recipe that was at the back of this story. I read this last week, I believe, and there is Ben's butternut squash soup. So that is what I am hoping to make tonight, because I love me a butternut squash soup. So that is what is on the plate today. So I probably will not check in with you later today, because I feel like if I do any reading, it'll be closer towards the end of the night. So I'll be too tired for an update, but tomorrow it's back to work. It's Monday, and I will go ahead and check in with you guys then. So welcome to the vlog. Hopefully this one isn't too long. I have a feeling the first 2 were long, and this one will probably be long as well, because that's just how I make my vlogs. Just how the cookie crumbles. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. So I don't know why it turned out this color. But you know, we'll try it and we'll see how it tastes. That is the butter sauce that's supposed to go on top. It's not like a super oily dish. That's not what it is. Yeah, no, it looks kind of like a pile of poop, but we did our best. This hot plate that I used here apparently is a hot plate that doesn't really know how to be on low, so it's kind of broken, and so it ended up burning a little bit, and I'm just hoping that you can't taste it too much. So bon appetit. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday morning. I have about 15 minutes before I have to get to work, so I figured I would do a quick check-in this morning. It was cold. It was really cold this morning. It is the first morning that we went ahead and put the heat on because it was like 61 degrees in the house, which is a little cold for the Sipek family. But that is the downside of fall. I love fall, but boy oh boy do I not like waking up to a cold morning, or a dark morning for that matter. But that being said, I did go ahead and read my short story for the day. I'm trying to think if I told you guys about, I did, no, wait. Did I tell you about yesterday's short story? I always forget. I feel like I didn't. I read The Longest Street in the World by Theodore Van Elst Jr. I can't remember if I told you about that. I feel like maybe I did. I rated it 3.5 stars. I thought it was an interesting read. I kind of thought it was a fun read. You know, I didn't think it was scary, but I was like, ooh, this is kind of fun. So there's that. And then this morning I read Dead Owls by Mona Susan Power, and I also gave that 3.5 stars. I kind of thought it was sweet. It was kind of more romantic than scary. So I was kind of looking at the cover here, and it says an Indigenous dark fiction anthology, and dark fiction is definitely different than horror. So I think the fact that people describe this as horror, and I was going into it expecting like horror, may have skewed my view of, or expectations of, what was going to be happening in the story. And if I had gone into it expecting more like fiction stories with a dark twist, I might have been less disappointed by some of these books. So I'll definitely keep that in mind moving forward. But still, I'm not a big short story girly. We're doing what we can here. But this story was only 10 pages long, so I do need to go ahead and read another 80 pages. Did I read 90 pages yesterday? No, I did not. me and my family ended up watching Uglies on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. I don't really know. And that is that new movie that is based off of the Uglies series that I read when I was younger. I don't remember much about that series, but I do think I enjoyed it. And I thought the movie was relatively decent. I have to admit, I don't love that actress very much. But I think that overall the story was well done, so it was entertaining, and I will definitely watch the next movie. I'm assuming that there's gonna be at least 4 of them since there's 4 books, but in case you didn't know that movie was out and you were a fan of the Ugly series, it is out there if you want to read it or watch it. But as far as Freshwater, yesterday I finished, I want to say it was part 1. It's now we are going from in which we were reading from the point of view of these, I think they called themselves Godspawn. So we are now talking about Ascara. Who is that? I don't know, to be honest. I guess we will find out when we read it. I am on page 58 right now. Like I said, I have to read another 80 pages. Hopefully today we can do that. Usually on Mondays I have a little bit more time to do reading because I'm not feeling like I have to do any editing because I still have the rest of the week to get some editing done. I also don't go to the gym, so it does give me a little bit of extra time, and I definitely do want to read at least 90 pages. Today would actually be great if I read more than 90 pages, considering the last couple of days I have been not reading enough. So I am really enjoying this story right now. I absolutely love Akwaeke Emesi's writing. I just think that it has a really great flow to it. And when you're reading it, you just can tell that they have a talent for words. They really do. Everything that they write just feels right and flows together. It is unique without being overly confusing or convoluted. So I am really enjoying this story. This first part of the book kind of talked about Ada's childhood, how the god spawn became a part of her, and kind of like the negative impacts that it has had on both the god spawn and Ada and her family, for her to have not fully morphed with these godspawn like she was supposed to, and just kind of how it has started to lead in a way to her madness. It seems that the problem is that the other godspawns that are still on the other side of the gates are not happy that this godspawn that is a part of her broke its promise. So essentially every time this godspawn left the gates, it would always said, I promise I will return. And this time it did not return because it was pulled into Ada's body, and despite trying to resist that, it is not able to return to the gates, and its siblings are not happy about that, and it is punishing this god spawn by punishing Ada and her family. So that seems to kind of be what we're dealing with right now. I think it is a really interesting concept. It's definitely not something that I've really read before, but at the same time it is kind of giving me Inheritance trilogy vibes by N.K. Jemisin, to be honest, since we're dealing with kind of these godspawn godlings situations where they are interfering to a degree with human existence and not always in the best way. We also kind of got to the point where this traumatic event that is talked about in the synopsis has occurred. So essentially what we've read so far is up to where the synopsis tells us what's going to happen. So moving forward, I really don't know. This book has already had multiple trigger warnings in it, so I'm not going to really say what they are because I know some people can find trigger warnings a little bit spoilery, but do go ahead and look into those when reading this book. So far it has definitely been relatively dark, and I have a feeling that's not going to change anytime soon considering what has happened. But I'm going to go ahead and continue reading this, having a really good time with the writing, really interested in all of our characters. Reading from the point of view of godlike creatures is always really interesting, just kind of the anger that these gods are feeling about being trapped and immortal, which as gods is definitely a downgrade, but at the same time starting to build a sort of protectiveness about the vessel that they are trapped in, or as they called her, the container that they are trapped in. They call her the Ada. Instead of just like Ada, she's the Ada. I just think that Ada's relationship with these god spawns is going to be something very interesting to follow, especially since they've been kind of in the background of her mind. She's kind of always been aware of them, and sometimes has even called to them in lonely moments. But now, considering this a traumatic event, I'm assuming that they're going to step forward and they're like, you know what? We're going to take over because something needs to be done. So very excited to continue this book. I will maybe check in with you guys later today. Hopefully I get a good amount of reading done. That is definitely the goal, because I am starting to feel like we're falling behind a little bit. My stamina for reading 90 pages a day has definitely slipped, but after a couple days of taking it easy, I guess you could say, I'm hoping that my reading battery has kind of refilled itself and I'll be able to go ahead and power through this book, because I really do want to go ahead and spend a lot of time with this book, because it is definitely calling to me. So I will talk to you guys later. Hello, I am on my lunch break. My lunch break is coming close to an end, but I wanted to go ahead and do a quick update on Freshwater just because I have some thoughts. So I've only read maybe like 30 or so pages today. I'm on page 86, but we have started the chapters that are from the point of view of Sogara. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct. I'm not really going to explain who this is because it's not mentioned in the synopsis and it comes a little later in the book. So you'll have to read it to find out. But essentially, I am really enjoying this book. It can be very hard to read. I feel like this book is very much about self-destructive behavior, especially this new section of the story that we're in. We have someone who has really kind of lost themselves and everything that makes them who they are, including to a degree their faith. And it's just really interesting to kind of watch Ada take a backseat in her own mind and kind of let these self-destructive behaviors run amok in her life. And I mean, I feel like this book is kind of using these gods, these godlike creatures that are sharing space in Ada's body to represent things like maybe depression, PTSD, and other mental illnesses that can negatively impact one's life when not properly addressed. So I really do think that the commentary of this story is really thought-provoking. So I definitely think that it is a book worth reading, though once again I just want to reiterate trigger warnings, just because there are some difficult topics in here. I wouldn't say that anything is like super on page in your face. One of the trigger warnings was a little bit, and I guess I'll mention it just because it was a trigger warning that doesn't like strongly impact me, but it did catch me a little bit off guard, and that is the trigger warning of self-harming. I myself am someone who used to self-harm, and so when I came across that, I was a little thrown off. Luckily I have healed a lot from that, so it didn't like really trigger me or anything, but I know that there are still a lot of people who have deep roots in that kind of trauma. So that was a bit more on the descriptive side than some of the other trigger warnings that are in this book, but I just wanted to point that out. But otherwise, I am absolutely loving these characters. I'm really enjoying the writing. Our character used to be a Christian, I believe, and still is to a degree. She's definitely struggling with that a little bit, as she's struggling with a lot of other things in life, and just watching these god spawns and godlike creatures interact with her, and just kind of seeing this Christ-like figure there amongst them as well, kind of present, and at times trying to intercede on Ada's behalf to try and help her out a little bit is really interesting. I think so. So I would definitely say that if you're someone who is intrigued by stories that have religious commentary and references and inspiration within them, this book definitely does that. I myself am not a religious person, and I don't always love it in my books, at least not when it comes to like actual religions that exist. I do enjoy them in like a fantasy setting, but this is really working for me. So I just wanted to jump in and give those thoughts about it. I have a few more minutes to read, and I will most likely check in with you sometime tomorrow. All right, guys, I am about to get ready to go to the gym. It is Tuesday after work. This is not a reading update. I am hoping to finish Freshwater today, so I will go ahead and update you once I do finish that. But I have a package here with a couple of books in it. I do this thing where every time I read 10 of my physical books, I allow myself to buy a book that I have already read but don't own. So like if it was a library book, a Libby book, a KU book. And this is just because I don't really do a good job of buying books that I really love once I have already read them, just because I'm not a huge rereader. So I'm like, is it worth it for me? And I'm like, yes, to me personally, it is worth it to have some of my all-time favorite books on my shelf. Even if I do never reread them again, I have fond memories of them. So that being said, I have two books here. One is the book that I have already read, and the other one is a continuation in a series. So I just wanted to do a baby haul here real quick to show you what those books are. So up first, we have the book that I have already read and bought as my reward for reading 10 physical books off of my shelf, and that is going to be To Catch a Firefly by Emmy Sanders. I absolutely loved this book. It was on KU, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. I wanted to own it physically because I feel like there's a good chance that this might be one of my top books of the year, so I wanted to go ahead and have it on my shelf to hold up during that video, and just because I can foresee myself rereading this book again someday because I had just such a wonderful time with the characters and the overall story. This is a male romance where one of our characters is neurodivergent and he has select mutism. So there is some good representation in here. So this is the book that I decided to reward myself with. I'm very excited to have it on my shelf. Then as far as the book that I bought, that is the next in a series. No surprise, it is the next book in the Criminal Intentions series. This is volume 10 and it's called, what is it called? Backdraft. And this one is a little bit thicker than some of the other ones that we have, but I'm sure that as we come to the end of the story, there's going to be a lot more happening. So I just wanted to make sure that this was on my shelf. So when I have time, I am able to get to this because I'm very excited to see what happens, especially based off of how volume 9 ended. I'm like, okay, things are definitely escalating. So very happy to have this next book on my shelf. So these are the 2 new books that are joining my shelves. This one will obviously go on my read shelf, and this one will go on my unread shelf when I get room. I ended up getting my pre-order of Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White earlier this month, and it has just been sitting on my windowsill because all 3 of the shelves that I was using for unread books is completely full at this point, so I really need to like not buy any new books. But I'm hoping that once I put together my October TBR next weekend, I'll be able to squeeze these into those extra spaces. But for now, they will be sitting on my windowsill with no home because your girl's got too many books, which I don't feel is like that big of a problem, but it is what it is. I'm gonna go ahead and head to the gym. I have been working on my Holly Jackson book, so that's one of the books I'm not really talking about in these videos because it's not on my Orilium TBR, but the book is due back either tomorrow, I think. I want to say almost 60% through it, so I'm gonna listen to it at the gym, so hopefully I finish it either tonight or early tomorrow, so I don't lose my hold on that before the end of the book, because things are picking up and I don't want to have to wait for weeks to figure out how the story ends. But I will hopefully either check in with you guys later tonight when I finish Freshwater, either that or I will check in with you guys tomorrow. So I was checking this book to see if I had already put my stamp in it, and it looks like it's signed. Like that looks like a legit signature, not like a printed one. So that's kind of cool. Either that or they're just really good at making a printed signature look like he actually physically signed it. So that's fun. All right, good morning. It is Wednesday morning. It is going to be a busy day for me. I have my therapy appointment today from 10 to 11. I have a regular doctor's appointment at 4:10. So I'm gonna leave work a little bit early to get to that. And then I am planning on going to the Silent Book Club, which I am 90% sure is tonight. I'll have to double check where it is. I want to say it's at the Uptown Grill, or was that last month? I haven't been for a few months either because I've been busy or because I found other excuses not to go, but I really do need to kind of work on interacting with people I don't know in a public setting. So that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be introducing ourselves hopefully to some strangers. So wish me luck on that. But I have finished a couple of books, so I wanted to go ahead and just talk about those real quick and let you know what I am going to read next. So as planned, I did finish Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi last night. I finished it relatively late and I needed to just sleep on it a little bit because I was like, I don't really know what I want to rate this. My first instinct was to rate it a 5 stars. My second instinct was to rate it a 4.5 stars. And I think I am more comfortable with the 4.5 stars. Don't get me wrong, this book is a masterpiece. This book, I believe, is the author's debut novel. They kind of said in the back that their friend was like, you have to write the spiritual book first. So if that is the case, if this is their debut novel, incredibly impressive. The writing in here is spectacular. The story is really multi-layered and explores so many aspects of the human condition, I guess you could say. I don't really know why I can't give this a full 5-star. I don't know if it's because sometimes things just went over my head a little bit. This is definitely a book that is very heavily rooted in spirituality, and that's not something I have a strong connection to. I do enjoy reading about it, but it does cause a slight disconnect between me and the story. So I think that's why I have to take off that like half-star, but otherwise I would highly recommend the story. I think I kind of already mentioned that this focuses heavily on mental illness. It focuses heavily on self-destructive behavior. It very much focuses on the different parts of yourself and how different parts of yourself step forward during different parts of your life. This book does deal a lot with the consequences of sexual trauma, so do keep that in mind. I think I mentioned a few times that you should definitely check trigger warnings. I think I mentioned a little bit that there is self-harming throughout this book. We explore a lot about how our character relies on these God spawns within her differently throughout her life, when they're more powerful, when she has a bit more control of her life. We also focus a little bit towards the end of the book on the character's sexuality changing, her relationship with her body changing as well. So there is just a lot going in the story where we really are kind of watching a young woman come into herself and her being one of those women who has a very difficult journey to get there, but I do think it had a very satisfying and hopeful ending. I think this quote by Edwidge Denticat from The New Yorker really does a good job of explaining it. It says an extraordinarily powerful and very different kind of physical and psychological migration story. So like I said, we kind of follow our character's journey with her feelings towards her body, especially since she is someone who experienced sexual trauma on multiple occasions, and also her psychological journey as she kind of struggles to figure out who is she, what parts of her are these gods. Is she suffering from some sort of mental illness, or is it just the fact that she is not fully human due to the presence of these god spawns within her? And exploring her relationship with multiple gods, either the god spawns, a Christ figure, as well as the Mother of Earth. So just a lot of different things going on in the story. Beautifully written, very interesting characters. I always love reading books from the point of view of gods because they think differently than humans. They see human emotions differently, and just the way that they explained like their opinion, or their response to Ada's human reactions to bad things, and even talking about, you know, how she reaches out to Christ for help, but how he views human suffering differently than a human because he himself is not fully human, was really interesting. But also watching these gods change over time as they spent more time with Ada, and became more a part of her, and that causing them to have a better understanding of the human condition. I'm not saying that they themselves became human in any form, but they definitely didn't fight against her human self as much in the end. So really did enjoy this story, a solid 4.5. Koike Mezi does it again, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading more books by them. Then last night I decided I didn't really want to read any short stories from Never Whistle at Night. I just haven't had the best of luck with that short story collection, so I guess I kind of wanted to avoid it. So I read the first half of this manga and then finished it up this morning, and that is Tokyo Ghoul of Volume 3, and this is by Sue Ishida, and I think I'm going to go ahead and give this 3.5 stars. This one definitely had a lot more action in it, and I did appreciate that. We kind of have our character waking up and realizing like he has the potential to make a difference between the relationship of ghouls and humans, because he himself is essentially half ghoul, half human. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with this realization. We also got to learn a little bit more about one of the main investigators that is out here trying to kill ghouls, and he will definitely become, I'm assuming, a pretty prominent part of the story as well. If you don't know what Tokyo Ghoul is about, essentially we are following a young man who, when going on a date with a girl, finds out that she's actually a ghoul and wanted to eat him. Unfortunately for her, she ends up getting crushed by like a bridge, and he gets injured in that accident as well. And the doctors decide the only way to save him is to transplant some of her organs into him. And since she is a ghoul and he was a human, this caused him to essentially become half a ghoul, and so he kind of needs to learn how to live amongst the ghouls, because ghouls eat human flesh, and that is what he is craving now. He can no longer eat regular human food. So obviously ghouls are seen as monsters because they consume human flesh, yet at the same time he starts to see things from the ghoul's point of view, that not all of them are like evil and going out and murdering people, that they're trying to eat in a very sustainable and non-harmful way. And he is definitely not happy that the investigators are killing these essentially innocent ghouls as if they are the same as those that are going out and murdering people, and he's looking to see what he can do to change the relationship between ghouls and humans to protect those innocent ghouls. So I did really enjoy the first season of the anime. The manga is going okay. I definitely think I'll stick with it. I have a feeling that for the most part, most of these will sit around a 3.5, maybe jump up to a 4. Manga is not my favorite format of reading. It's very rare for me to come across a manga where I'm like, yeah, that's a 5-star read. I mean, I did have, I think, some pretty high ratings when I was reading the Full Metal Alchemist manga, but that's kind of like top tier manga in my opinion. But I will definitely continue with this series. This was for the Q prompt for lore, a translated work. So obviously this is translated from Japanese, I believe. So we have gone ahead and completed that. Up next, we are going to go ahead and see about completing the lore class by reading the D prompts. I did need to read all 3 prompts to complete my lore class. So I will be reading Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts, because this prompt is to read a retelling. And this will be my first time reading a Katie Roberts. Am I looking forward to bringing this to the silent reading club tonight? Not the best book, considering it's like essentially all erotica, but you know, we're not ashamed to read stuff like this. This is Katie Roberts' kind of Disney retellings. I believe a lot of them are kind of BDS themed. Some of them are polyamorous. This one specifically seems to be between Jasmine and Jafar. I do think we are in a contemporary setting where people are either business owners, or I don't know if there's gangs or mafia situations involved. I really know very little about these books. And it's super short. I think it's just over 200 pages, so I really don't need more going into it, but I am hopeful that I enjoy Katie Roberts' writing, just because I am really intrigued by this series. It seems like the series has some hits and misses, where there's like a few books in there that people really like, and then a few books that people were rather disappointed by. But Katie Roberts just has a lot of books on her backlist that I'm intrigued by, so I really do want this to be a success. And finishing this will go ahead and complete my lore class, which is exciting. Like I said, I haven't read anything from Whistle at Night, so I am hoping to read maybe at least 3 of the stories today to make up for that. So I will be reading this throughout the day, as well as bringing it to the silent reading club. So that is the plan for now. As far as audiobooks go, I need to finish my Good Girl Bad Blood book that I'm reading for the Bookstore read along that isn't part of Orilium. I do only have, I want to say, maybe around 3 hours left, and since I listened to it on 2 times speed, I should be able to finish it in the next hour and a half. When I go to work, I will be spending those first 2 hours working a workload that I can listen to audiobooks to, so fingers crossed I'll finish it. It depends on if I have my team meeting in the morning or if I have it in the afternoon. So I haven't been really talking about that, but I will let you know once I finish that, and then I'll be able to return to the audiobook that I'm reading for my demonology class, which is the Keep This to Yourself book. So that is a very long update, but I finished quite a few books yesterday and will be starting a few, and I probably won't check in with you today. I'm not really sure. It depends on how late I get back from the book club. Otherwise, I will go ahead and check in with you tomorrow. I was just updating my spreadsheet, and I just found out that Freshwater by Quickie Mizzy is my 100th book of the year, which means I have achieved my goal of reading 100 books, and I'm happy that this book gets that place of honor. I think my Goodreads said that I achieved my goal like 3 books ago, but I feel like Goodreads is always a little bit off. I don't know why. I think sometimes it counts the books that I put on my DNF shelf as read, so it's always off by like a book or 2. But according to my spreadsheet, Freshwater by a Quickie Mizzy has achieved me my goal of reading 100 books this year. Alright guys, so Tofino is right behind me. I did steal him from the couch so that you would be able to enjoy his presence while I did a bit of an update. And I do also have a baby Target haul because I did go to Target yesterday. I did not check in with you yesterday just because I was relatively busy. I had like my head is like right where he is. You're like, Natalie, move. I don't want to see your head. I want to see the cat. Okay, sorry. I'm not going to be in the center of the screen, but that's okay. Yesterday I had a bunch of errands to run, and so I just didn't have time to check in with you guys. I was kind of running all over the place, but that also means I did not read my 90 pages. I think I've only read my 90 pages maybe like once this week or something. I feel like it just has not been going well, which is starting to make me a little bit nervous. But I did read, I think, around like 60-70 pages yesterday, so I'm gonna go ahead and update you on that, starting with the short stories of Never Whistle at Night. I wanted to go ahead and pick up my pace on this a little bit, so I ended up reading 3 stories yesterday, so the majority of my reading was from this book. So I'm just gonna real quick go through the stories that I read and my ratings. I think I remember my ratings pretty well. The 3 stories I read yesterday were pretty successful. A couple of them were also on the longer side, which might have worked for me a little better just because I enjoy a longer story. So the first one was, let me just make sure. When was the last time was Dead Owls the last one I talked about? Oh man, now I don't even know. Okay, so I think The Prepper by Morgan Talty was one that I read. Was it yesterday or the day before? Now I'm confusing myself. So let's start with The Prepper. So The Prepper, I ended up giving, I think I ended up giving it, I should have double checked before I started filming this video, like a 4 or a 4.5 star. This one was probably one of the longest stories that was in here, and I actually quite enjoyed the story. It was very much about like obsession, and I thought that it was a really interesting read. So that was a good one for me. And let me just check real quick. This author wrote another short story collection called Night of the Living Res, which I already have on my TBR. What I keep finding is that authors that I'm interested in, I already have on my TBR, which like is good. It's good to know that the books you're planning on reading, you know, are by authors that you're enjoying. But it's also like I was hoping to find some new authors, and so far it's either they don't have any other books out yet, or you know, like maybe they just write short stories, or they're like a college professor and they just happen to write the stories, so they're not always like authors that are in these books. But that being said, the other one I read was Uncle Robert Rides the Lightning by Kate Hart. This one I didn't like quite as much because I thought it was an interesting story, but also I didn't really know what to think of it. So I want to say probably gave this like 3.5 stars. And then I read Sundays by David Heska Wanbli Vaden, which I probably said that name wrong. This one was also a little bit longer. This one was very hard to read. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's about, just in case you come across the short story collection and you want to avoid the story, because this one can be rather triggering. Because this one talks about a man who, when he was 9 years old, was raped by a priest while he was at one of those academies that a lot of Indigenous children were forced to go to. So obviously there are some discussions about sexual assault of a child, and like the story started with that, which was definitely very shocking. But I think I gave this about a 4.5 star. I think it was well written and well handled, but I just wanted to put that out there, that Sunday's story is probably the most triggering story that I have come across in this collection. And then I finished my reading of this by reading Eulogy for a Brother Resurrected, and I believe I gave this 4 stars. I did think that was an interesting story as well, and enjoyed the writing of it. So that is my update on Never Whistle at Night. I'm probably gonna try and read another 3 stories of it today as well, because it would be really great if I could finish this book up tomorrow. Because I think if I read 3 today, then I'll only have to read 2 tomorrow, and then I'll be able to wrap this up. I did also start Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts, and I only got 20 pages into it, and I think it's going to be an okay read. It's definitely an erotica. I mean, in the first 20 pages here, we've already had a very explicit sex scene. It seems like this series kind of follows BDSM themes as far as I know, and this one seems to be a consensual non-consent, which I have read before, and is a form of BDSM that I don't know much about, but personally it doesn't bother me. I know that as far as BDSM, this could be one of the more iffy ones for people. I don't have a problem with it. I've enjoyed it in the past, and I thought the sex scene was well done. Is it going to get overly repetitive once, you know, I'm at the end of the book and all it's been is sex scenes? I don't know. It seems that we're dealing kind of with a combination of business people and kind of underground criminal parties and all that jazz. And we're following Jasmine and Jafar. And Jafar was her father's second in command, and he kind of created a coup. Is that how you say it? You created a coup? You had a coup? I don't know the correct terminology for that. But he's like, okay, Jasmine, now you belong to me. And he gives her the opportunity to escape, and she is unable to escape him. Now, I do want to point out that these two have known each other for a few years. Obviously, there's going to be like an age gap as far as I know, but they have always had this word between the two of them, because they would always like banter and be kind of like assholes to each other. And there was this word that they would say, like if they're like, you cross the line, you need to stop, and so that is their safe word. So like from the very beginning, there is a safe word between the two of them, which I think is very important in a relationship. So far, I'm having a decent time. I mean, it's giving me exactly what I expected from an erotic story. And I'm only 20 pages in, and we will see how I feel by the end of it. Because while I enjoy a good sex scene, I am usually someone who enjoys things happening outside of the relationship, which is obviously not going to be the case with this book. But I'm not going to judge it before I get too far into it. We're just going to say we got 20 pages in, and Katie Roberts knows what she's doing when she writes a sex scene. So that's what I have to say on that. As far as my audiobook, I am about 2 hours away from finishing Keep This to Yourself. I'm kind of teetering between enjoying this book and not enjoying it. I have a feeling it's probably going to be about a 3.5 star. Things are definitely getting more interesting as we're approaching the end. I think the first half of the story kind of didn't quite work for me pacing wise. It just took a little while for things to get interesting, and especially because I was reading it side by side with Good Girl Bad Good Girl Bad Blood, and just our main character, I'm forgetting his name right now, whatever his name is, compared to like Pip. If you compare the two as like investigators, despite them being about the same age, it's just Pip is a way more of a go-getter. She's more willing to take risks. She's a little better at seeing connections as well. And so watching him is just kind of like amateur hour compared to Pip. Maybe it's probably more realistic. If a teenager was to investigate a murder, this is probably more what it would look like. But it's just something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind. I don't mean to compare the two of them, but I just can't help it because I was kind of reading them at the same time. But hopefully I finish that maybe today when I go to the gym, or at the very least tomorrow. It'd be really great if I could finish it by the end of this vlog. All right, so let's see if I have time to do a very quick haul. I don't have too much in here. I'm on my break, so it's coming to an end. So I went to Target to get some hairspray and to get some mouthwash. And I was like, you know what? You don't just go to Target to get the things you need. You gotta get some random stuff. And obviously with Halloween coming around, I bought a couple bags of Reese's Cups because it was buy one, get one 50% off. I'm honestly not a huge fan of candy bars, but Reese's Cups, I do like these. So I bought myself some of those, and hopefully they last a decent amount of time. Then I got this cute little pumpkin, and I was like, I have so many pumpkins. I really don't need any more, but I just thought he was really cute. So he was in that, section at the front of the store where they have everything that's like $5, and they're cheap trinkets, but they grab you. I've fallen victim to it many a time. And then I got this little zombie. Look at him. Oh my God. I think he's so cute. And he's got his little trick-or-treat bag. And look at his little smile. So yeah, no, I thought this was super adorable. So he was $5 as well. And I said, okay, I'll take you. And then they had these Halloween mugs, and they were $5 a piece. And I was like, these mugs don't seem very comfortable to drink out of, but every once in a while in my vlogs for my B-roll, I like to have a video of me pouring some tea, and these would be perfect for that. And so we have a little pumpkin with his little ghost trick-or-treat bag, and then we have a little ghost with his pumpkin trick-or-treat bag. So I just thought they were super cute and perfect for the fall time. And I've been using the same like 3 mugs. Sorry, I got cut off by my timer, which means I have to go back to work. But yes, I figured I'd get some new mugs because I've been using the same old mugs over and over again. So I am going to return to work today. I should be going to the gym. My dad is out of the house for the next few days because he's off enjoying retirement and doing some biking and stuff down in Bend. So I'm sure that I will be relatively busy tonight and possibly tomorrow as well because I got to film my TBR, including Becca's Spookopoly. Oh my gosh, I was so excited yesterday when that announcement video dropped. I was like, yes, oh man, let's go. So yes, very excited about that, but there is a good probability that the next time I check in will be to wrap up this vlog since it is ending tomorrow, and hopefully I will have a couple books finished up for you then. All right, guys, I will check in with you later. All right, guys, so I'm on my lunch break and I've decided that it is in my best interest to go ahead and decorate my shelves for fall and Halloween, especially since this weekend I need to film my October TBR. I mean, it's probably in my best interest to do some reading over my lunch break because I haven't done any reading today yet, but I have decided that this is what I want to do and my brain will not let me focus on anything else until this is done. So I am going into this with 0 plans. I don't have too many decorations, but I do have too many for just this shelf at this point. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe I want to like put some on the top of that shelf over there because you can kind of see that a little bit when I'm doing updates like here. But otherwise, I just feel like I have so much like knick-knack stuff and I don't like clutter, and I need like open spaces here and there, especially next to my bed because that's where I'm putting the books that I'm actually reading, so I can't have trinkets there. But I think we'll just kind of start with this shelf and we'll see what's left over, and if some stuff goes back in the box and isn't used today, that's okay. Or maybe I can even head over into my office and decorate that space a little bit, but that desk needs to be clean, but that's a chore for another day. But let's go ahead and see what we can do here. All right, so I just want to give you like a close-up of what we're working with. Obviously we have the new stuff that I went ahead and bought, and these 2 are new as well, but I bought them last month at, was it Michael's. And then we have our crystal ball, and then these I usually drape over the shelves, and then we have those. So this is what we're working with, and we'll see what we do with it. so here's what it's looking like. I didn't want it to feel like overly cluttered or anything like that, so I kind of don't want to add any more than I have. And these bottom shelves don't really show very often, so I didn't really put too much thought into those, but I'm pretty happy, like especially with this shelf. I think it looks really cute. We kind of have like this green theme that is working really well. So I think it's cute. Like the book up there looks really good, and this is more like a little cozy mushroom section. But let me see what I want to go ahead and do with the rest of the decorations. So I put these little guys here on the top shelf, and then I just put a couple of books as a stack to kind of bring the merry-go-round a little bit higher. So I think it looks very cute. Then if we come over here, my bed is a mess now because all those extra trinkets I need to put away for the time being, but I just went ahead and kind of put my little stack of fake books with the glass pumpkin, and then the little scaredy cat, and then I put a couple little pumpkins here. Those little tiny pumpkins are there year round, but I did put my little crochet mushroom, so that is how it is looking. These are the only two fall decorations I didn't have room for, and I always struggle to place these because they are kind of on the bigger side. So I'll just put them back in the box for now, but I am pretty happy with the way that everything turned out. Alright guys, so it is Saturday evening and it is time for me to wrap up this vlog. I will probably stay up for another hour or so. I am starting to get tired because I'm an old lady, but still I wanted to go ahead and wrap this up while I still had some energy. So I do have a couple of books to review for you, and then we will go ahead and see how we did this week and what classes we completed. So to start off with, I did finish my audiobook yesterday for Keep This to Yourself, and I decided to end up giving this book 4 stars. I initially thought it would be like a 3.5 star read, a good time, but nothing great. But I have to admit, I really enjoyed the way that this story ended. I thought that it was a little bit unexpected. I kind of started to realize what direction it was going in, but I really did like the turns that it ended up taking, and I thought that it was very exciting to read the last couple hours of that book. The pacing definitely increased, so I thought that the story definitely was worth it in the end. So I had a lot of fun with the book overall, so I think a 4-star rating is definitely a good way to go, and I definitely would consider reading more books by this author. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say about the book other than it was a fun time. And if you're looking for kind of a thriller, I think it's leaning slightly young adult, slightly new adult, because I think our characters have just graduated high school. So I would say it's kind of around that new adult age group. But if you're looking for a thriller like that with some queer representation in it, then I definitely think that this is a book worth checking out. Then I did go ahead and finish Whistle or Never Whistle at Night. I finished the last story this morning. I ended up reading almost all of them last night, but then I was just too tired to read the last one. So I'm trying to remember what the last one was that I told you about. So I want to say the last one I told you about was the Eulogy for a Brother Resurrected. Did I tell you about that one? I can't even remember. I think I did. Right. Sorry if the camera shifted a little bit. I had to go ahead and type out what I rated these short stories because I read quite a few of them, so I don't remember them off the top of my head. So the first one I read was Night Moves by Andrea Rogers. This one I ended up giving 3.5 stars. It was kind of a classic werewolf situation, and that's all I will say on that because it was a very short one. Then we had one which I think was called Capgrass. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this one was by Tommy Orange. Tommy Orange I have read before. I read his book There. I didn't love the book. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I felt like because there were so many different characters, I was having trouble kind of like distinguishing the characters and remember whose story was whose. And so I've always planned on giving him a second chance. Now, unfortunately, I gave this story only 2 stars. That's not to say that I've kind of like decided I'm not going to give him a second chance. I'm just saying it doesn't make me optimistic. This one, I felt like I just didn't really know the point of the story, to be honest, and I felt like I was just kind of reading it because it was there. So it didn't really give me much. It was a longer story as well, and while some of the longer stories I have appreciated, this one I was kind of like, I kind of want this to end. So that was a 2-star. Next, we have The Scientist's Horror Story by Darcy Little Badger. I have read 3 books by this author. The A Lots Away series, I read both A Lots Away as well as a prequel to it. I enjoyed. I didn't like love them. I think I gave them both about 3.5 stars, but I really love the A Snake Falls to Earth book by this author, and this one I ended up actually giving 4.5 stars. I actually quite enjoyed it. I think it had like an interesting factor to it, and then it also made me laugh a little bit, and I did like the commentary of the last story because it actually had kind of 2 horror stories within it, and the second one was rather clever, so I enjoyed that one quite a bit. The next one is Collections by Amber Blazer Wardzala. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. And that one I gave 4 stars. This one was relatively interesting. It focused a lot on kind of people being allies or championing diversity for their own benefit to make themselves feel better, rather than because they like really care about things being diverse. They just want to like be like, yeah, no, I'm like anti-racist and I support queer people and blah blah blah, but they just do that to make themselves feel superior. So that's kind of like what that one focused on, so I did like that one. Next we had Limbs by Wabgeshig Rice. This one I also gave 4 stars. I really like the commentary on here of colonizers just taking from the indigenous, and not just taking from those who they stole land from, but continuing to take from their families and from their children like generations and generations later. So I did like the commentary of that story. So that was another 4-star, and that was actually the last story in here. So I went ahead and calculated my average for this, and the average came to a 3.44. So I would go ahead and rate this overall as a 3.5, which I don't think is too terrible. I think we ended up only having 1 5-star in here, which is a bit of a bummer, but I definitely think I did better with the stories towards the second half of this book than I did in the beginning. So for me, I would say if you're struggling a little bit in the beginning, that it does get better towards the end. So I'm definitely glad that I went ahead and picked this up. Does it solidify to me that maybe short stories are not the best format to me? Yes. I do have a short story collection on my October TBR, which I filmed today and was utter chaos. But you know, I'll continue to give them a try every once in a while because I do think it is a good way to sample some new authors. This didn't really introduce me to any new authors, but it did kind of solidify that some of the authors that I already have on my TBR are ones that I'm going to enjoy because I did rate their stories a little bit higher than some of the others. So that's a good thing, I guess. So that being said, I have not started another audiobook yet, so I will go ahead and start one next week and I'll talk about it then. Talking about my current physical book, we have Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts. I have officially gotten to the 100-page mark, 102 to be specific. I don't want to say that I'm bored with this book because I feel like that's not quite right, but I feel like I'm already kind of over the sexiness of it, and there hasn't even really been that many other sex scenes other than like the one in the first chapter. There's definitely been some finger play and all that jazz, but like no like full-blown sex scenes. But even still, because there's like constantly some sort of sexual activity going on, it just kind of loses its importance in a way. I don't know, it loses its impact. So I feel like if they do have an actual like sex scene, which it seems like they probably will in this next chapter based off how this one ended, it's just not going to impact me the way that the one in the first chapter, which was really exciting, and now it's just kind of like, yeah, we've been here for the last few chapters and it's just not doing much. And I also feel like my favorite part of the story so far is kind of getting to know this world a little bit. There's not a lot of world building in here. Definitely not. It is an erotica. But that is the part that is interesting me the most, which is not surprising because when it comes to romances, especially one that's set kind of like in an alternate, non-contemporary setting, I am always really interested in the world and want to learn more about that. And erotica doesn't quite give you that because that's not what it's about. But I still find myself craving it. So that is a little bit unfortunate. And just hearing these two in their head constantly being like, oh, I'm so attracted to him, but I know I shouldn't be, and I should be trying to get away, but I want to stay. And him being like, oh, you know, I can't let her distract me because I need to make all these important business decisions and need to solidify my power and blah blah blah, but she's so distracted. Just like having that like over and over again, you're like, yeah, I get it, I really do. And I think that's one reason I've been struggling with like contemporary romance, where there's not much outside of like the romance. It just gets boring and it gets repetitive because there's only so many thoughts that you can have about the person that you're attracted to. I mean, I hate to say it, but there really only is so many ways for an author to write that someone is attracted to another person. So it is getting a little bit repetitive, even just 100 pages in, and it is a bit of a slow read and is relatively easy for me to put down. That being said, I can definitely see that Katie Roberts is an author that I would go to if I'm looking for a head empty, no thoughts smut read, because she does know how to handle sex. I don't know how else to put that, but am I going to be reaching for her books every month, every 2 months? No, because they probably will get a little bit tiresome and repetitive relatively quickly. But I'm the kind of person who kind of struggles to read the same thing over and over again. That's why I read so many different genres, and that's why I don't like binge series anymore, or I don't binge authors, and also why like I don't read Ali Hazelwood very often, despite the fact that I love her. I know that I would get tired of her work just because it is very similar in every book that she writes. I just know that that is the way that I am. You know, I'm not the kind of person who can watch the same TV show over and over again, you know, on repeat. With Halloween and Christmas coming up, I'm starting to realize that there aren't really any Christmas or Halloween movies that I want to watch, because I'm like, I just watched all of these. And yes, it's been a year, but like after watching them like every year for the last 10 years, I'm just like, I'm tired of these. So I don't know, that's just the way my brain works, and I'm probably thinking too deeply about my feelings towards an erotica. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll go ahead and finish the second half of this next week. It would be awesome if I finish this tomorrow, which, considering if I want to read 90 pages, I should. It would just be an additional 10 pages. We'll see. We'll see how that happens, because I read 90 pages today. I did reach my 90 pages today, but otherwise I just have not been doing it. It hasn't been happening. So I'm looking at the 2 books that I still need to finish, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we'll see. I believe we have 9 days to finish it, right? There's 30 days in September. Is there 31? I can't remember. I think there's only 30. So let's take a look. So Never Whistle at Night went ahead and completed the O prompt for restoration. So I've gone ahead and finished that. The next audiobook that I will be starting will go ahead and complete the Q prompt for restoration. So hopefully next week I will finish restoration. Well, actually, hopefully next week I will finish everything, because I have to. And then Keep This to Yourself was the only book I had to read for demonology, and so I've gone ahead and completed that as well. Then what else did I read this week? So there was Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi, which I read, and that was the Q prompt for animal studies. And did I read Tokyo Ghoul in this one? If I did, that was also a Q prompt, and that was for lore. So essentially I've completed all of my O prompts, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 prompts left to go. So I don't think that's a terrible place to be, especially since one of them is an audiobook and the other one I'm already about halfway through, and then another one is very short. So I'm going to continue to stay optimistic that next week we will be able to complete my Orilium TBR, and we'll be able to jump into my ridiculous October TBR, which you have seen that video already, because I have a feeling these vlogs are coming out who knows when. But yes, that is the end of week 3. This is the end of week 3 already, guys. I hope you're enjoying these vlogs. I'm enjoying making them. They're keeping me on track, even though I haven't been achieving my 90-page goal. I am definitely still reading more than I would be if I didn't have the accountability of the vlogs. That's sometimes why I like doing vlogs, because like you have to be reading so that you have actual things to update people on. So thank you for helping me just by being here. But as always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.